I always have a blank stare every time I start the live. Hi, everybody. I am Keyoka. I'm a writer, I'm a dog mom, and I travel solo. Last year, my dogs and I went to 10 countries, and we did it alone. We did it alone, but I made some great friends along the way, one of which I met while I was in Albania for 6 months. And I'm going to bring her up. She's my special guest today. Hi,
Hi,
hi Maya. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Can you tell the people who you are?
Yes, I'm Maya. I'm Maya Travels on Instagram and TikTok. I work remotely. I work in education and I also solo travel. I've been in total to more than 40 countries. And yeah, currently I am based in Albania and had a wonderful time meeting Keyoka there last year and excited to talk about it today.
Yay! I'm excited too. Um, I see y'all. I see y'all. I see y'all watching the video. Please like the video. Please drop down in the comment section if you have any questions for Maya during this entire thing. Please feel free to ask. Um, I love that you came down to my channel. I'm happy you're here. Uh, Hi D. I'm assuming this is D and not H from H and D abroad. Hello, Esther from London. I apologize for my fake accent. I apologize. Thank you for joining the live today. Um, so you said that you've been to 40 countries
Mhm.
by yourself.
No, not entirely by myself. The first time I ever traveled out of the US was actually with my grandma when I was 17. We went to England, Wales, and Scotland. Um, and then once I was 21, I did an internship in Tanzania and also studied abroad in Austria. And from there, I really enjoyed traveling and I went back to visit Tanzania and, started visiting other countries from that point on.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. So, when was the decision to just kind of go it alone and be like, okay, I want to create this life abroad by what was that process like from I enjoy traveling to I'm gonna spend my life overseas?
Yes, so I actually did find myself at a point in time in a relationship with someone that lived in Belgium. And during that time, it was pandemic days, and I could not travel to see him at that time due to the restrictions, and he also couldn't travel to see me. So we did go to a couple other countries, which included Croatia and Greece. And once the restrictions were lifted, that is sort of when I was sort of doing like 3 months on, 3 months off, 3 months abroad, 3 months back in the States. And then at a certain point, I was able to get a remote job. I was really wanting to live abroad permanently the whole time, but finding a remote job can be difficult. So once I had that piece of the puzzle, I was ready to go for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a firm believer that if you work remotely, what you doing here? There's no reason to be here. You could
Yeah,
be somewhere else.
100%. And you should, especially if you are single and childless. Literally, why would you be here? Go out there and see something else. 100%.
Yes. Hi, Diamond. That's wet. I asked you that already. She also bops around. Can't stay in one place. We love to see it. Um, yes, everybody, I see you in the chat. Thanks for commenting. If you have any questions for Maya, please let me know. Um, so yeah, so we kind of talked a little bit about how you got your start. Was there, I guess, what kind of planning went into your journey abroad? Like, do you have like a list of places that you wanted to see? Is it kind of do you travel by deals? Like, what's the planning aspect of it?
I would say there's definitely some of that, seeing where is the cheapest flight and going from there. But for me specifically, yeah, as I said, there were instances of like when I was first starting out, like I just can't go to certain countries because of the pandemic, and neither could my ex, so we would have to meet somewhere. And then once we parted ways, honestly, for me, Albania seemed like an easy choice because I had already been there a few times. My best friend lived there. So it was sort of the obvious answer. But I also have spent some time in Tanzania this year, about 4 months, which also is somewhere that I've been to before. So I guess usually I would say my process is I, visit a lot of places, but when it comes to settling down somewhere, it tends to be somewhere where I'm already familiar with the landscape. I kind of know what's going on, and I have friends already, like a community that I can fall into when I get there.
Okay, so we're jumping into the Albania conversation. We got a question. Hi, that girl. Maya serving looks. We see
Oh,
you.
thank
We
you.
see you.
Wow. Wait, guys, I forgot to say, look at my Albania sweatshirt.
Maya is like the postcard for for Black Americans in Albania. Like she's oh
Great.
gosh. Here we are. Here we are. Hi Angela. I see you guys down in the comments. Um, let's see. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to talk about this because I think there's a lot of mis I don't want to say misinformation. Everybody has different experiences, right? But she wants to know about the Black experience. Everybody keeps saying it's not safe. What's your take on that?
Um, I must disagree. I find it to be quite safe, and I would say that's actually one of the primary reasons I decided to stay there is when I'm there, I'm not recommending anyone do this, but when I'm there, I do have a sense that I can just kind of turn off my brain to a degree because I'm comfortable there. I know what's going on, and I also feel that the community cares about my well-being. The police, obviously we're not used to having the police actually serve and protect us, but I do feel like they mostly do, especially when you got that American passport. They care a lot about what happens to you. I I there was an instance, again, I'm not saying anyone should do this, but I was in Dors and I was at, an establishment, and I just left my whole purse in the bathroom, like just my entire purse, passport, everything was in it. And then like I walked 5 minutes away and then I realized I didn't have it. And the only thought that came into my head was, oh, now I have to walk back 5 minutes. But I knew it was gonna be there. Like I did not fear for a second that it wasn't gonna be there when I got back. And so, that's just kind of the community that's there, that people really look out for you. As for the Black experience specifically, um, there of course are ignorant comments, um, but I think a lot of people would be surprised if they went there to see actually how much people there like Black people. People constantly compliment you if you're Black. People think you're cool if you're Black. And obviously, you and I are women, but I know men have the same experience, a similar experience as well. I remember I went to a concert and there was a Black man there from Senegal, and he was just like, dancing and really getting into it. And all the guys there thought he was so cool and like wanted to be like him and impress him. So of course there is, of course, racism, um, like everywhere, but I think Albania has a bad rap in that regard that isn't necessarily deserved.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and not just the American perception. I would say in Europe, people see
Yeah.
Albanians through a certain lens that isn't necessarily true. It's probably one of the safest countries I've ever been in. And I travel alone. I know you travel alone, but like in terms of walking around at night, there are children outside, and then it's also because you're black, you're probably the only black person like within a certain square radius. So that means your neighbors recognize you. Like the people who live in community with you know who you are, and those nomads are looking out for you. Like they like I always talk about the old bobbies who like you're walking down the street and I had dogs with me, but they would give my dogs treats, and it's like they recognize you, they know you, and they look out for you. Not to discredit anybody else's experience going there, but I found it to be safe. Also, Black American culture precedes us, right? Like they know our music, they know our fashion, they know our celebrities, and you kind of get the glow from that in a way that I've never experienced before. Like people want to talk to me about why Kanye West is like acting crazy. You'll be in a taxi. I remember my first experience when I got to Albania. I was in a taxi, and the guy was like so excited. He was so excited. He was like, "I love Jay Z," and starts to put on like, and I'm like, "What is happening? Like, what's going on? What's going on?" Um. Oh, that girl is Abigail. Hi, Abigail. Abigail. She's in Albania right now. She says, "Now, why didn't I tell her that we're gonna be famous if you're black?" I mean, that's kind of the experience because Albania is such an isolated country that like a lot of them have only seen black people on television. You know,
100%.
100%. Maya, have you found a black community in Albania?
I wouldn't say a community per se, but I've certainly made friends with many Black people there. But I think the only unfortunate thing I can say about that is that so many, I mean, obviously, so many Black people are not, you know, from
There,
Albania, obviously, so they're not staying there long term. Like, obviously, well, I left first, and then you left, and other people that we knew left, so um, it's sort of like the
I
full
left
expat
because you
community is
left.
kind of like, wow,
I'm just
man,
kidding.
I'm so sorry.
I didn't know. I buy the same color things.
What things?
It's like all the same shade. Like, what am
Oh,
I
true.
doing today?
No, you're
Anyways,
cute. I love
so yeah, there's everybody is kind of transient in terms of
that. Yeah,
like the black people there. I think even I've spoken about this before. There are a few athletes there who are black,
right.
and they're on contracts, right? So a lot of them aren't staying either.
Yeah,
There just really isn't. There really aren't that many black people around. But one of the things I really love about you is that you've completely immersed yourself in the culture.
thanks.
Like this girl, are you fluent in ship yet? Are you
No,
claiming
not
that?
fluent. No, I'm not claiming that, but give me like, okay, so my apartment lease ends in June. Give me till June. I'm gonna be fluent.
Yeah, like speaking Albanian, like throwing yourself in their culture and totally totally immersed in the experience. That's really what I love about you.
Thank you.
Exactly. So Abigail says she's met three people who told her she needs to met. That's because there's no other black people. So like if you're black, check, and you're posting on social media, check, check. We all know each other. Maya
Okay.
saw me walking down the street and was like, "Hey, are you?" That's how we ended up connecting when we were in Tirana, because I think you were
Right.
like, "Are you?" I think I
No,
saw you
see,
walking by the lake.
yes, exactly. So I had already followed you because I saw your video about hair care, which we should also talk about hair care because that's the whole thing. But I
Sure.
saw your video about hair care in Albania. I was like, oh, let me throw a little follow. And then you also followed me back. And then I just saw you walking right by Lichini, thought. And then I didn't say hi because I also saw in your content that you were like, oh, I'm an introvert. I was like, oh, I don't want to overwhelm her. But I messaged you, and obviously we hung out from there. I'm really glad we did.
Thanks for respecting my boundaries. Oh. Okay. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the Black experience. Let's get off of it. Let's talk about some other cultural experiences. So Esther is asking, how accessible is Tirana? Is it really hilly? I'd love to visit, but I can't do the steep hills.
No, it's not really that hilly. In terms of accessibility, there are buses. It's definitely the best bus system in the country. But
Which is
if
not
you're
saying
comparing,
much.
yeah, no, if you're comparing it to other European countries, it's not, it's not there. But you can basically get where you want to go with the bus system. One thing I'll say about a couple things I'll say about the bus system in Tirana specifically. Um, it is on Google Maps now, but it's not 100% accurate. And it's also confusing because a lot of the bus numbers on Google Maps are not going to be the numbers, or they're just going to be no number on the bus when it arrives. So you're not completely sure. So you might have to cross reference the number in Google Maps with the map from the city's website that shows what number correlates with the name of the bus. So that's one. And then two is that the buses just kind of stop running when they want to stop running. They're supposed to keep going till 11 every night, but they don't. Um, so you kind of got to be flexible. But in terms of being hilly, it's really not within the city limits. It's right next to Mount Daiti. So if you want to do hiking, you have that option. But inside Tirana itself, it's really not that
Let me amend also. Mount Daiti, you can take the cable car up, which is beautiful. You should do it if you don't
hilly.
want to hike. But getting to the place where the cable car is, there's a hill, and
Yeah. Mm.
also there's certain parts, like if you stay in the area, I can't say it, but where the lake is,
Lee Cheney
there's
thoughts.
yeah, there's hills up there. But like if you're staying
Oh,
somewhere that's
true.
central Tirana, if you're staying somewhere central Tirana, you shouldn't run into any. It's flat.
True. Very good point.
Yeah, and also this is an unpopular opinion that might be a little elitist. I would just take a
Mm.
taxi if I'm in Tirana. I
You
wouldn't
can
worry about the
absolutely do
buses.
that.
I would
Oh,
just take
but
taxis.
the taxis are so expensive in Tirana relative to other places in the region. Obviously, they're not expensive compared to the US, but it's just like if you don't have to, then don't. I don't know. Like I go,
Well, you're
multiple
talking
times a
about
week to
going
the center.
outside of. Are you talking about going outside of Tirana? Are you talking about going
No, just
around
going
within Tirana?
both. Both. I
I
I
also
rarely take a taxi unless I have to. But
I also just walk, but it depends on
well,
how
but
much of a walker you are.
in the summer, you really can't nowadays. The summer is like 100 degrees every day, so you cannot walk more than 5 minutes outside. So that's one thing I'll say about Tirana too, is in the summer it is really unbearably hot. Um, so it's not the best place to spend the summer. And it's kind of dead in the summer, like really no one's there unless they have to be. So something to keep in mind.
From New Orleans, it is not unbearably hot. Get yourself one of them little fans. Keep water on deck. Water on deck. Hydrate.
Hmm.
Wear some
Hmm.
sunglasses and get out there and get your steps in.
Okay.
That's mine.
Okay, period. Okay, period.
Period. Periana. Um,
Wait, speaking of New Orleans, my parents have this. I think this is from New
I love
Orleans.
it. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
I know. Aren't we cute?
yeah, we love culture. Yes, we love it.
Period. Period. Period.
Adelia from Picky Girl Travels the World is saying, how hard would it be for me to find food to eat that I don't need to cook? No, no fruits, no veggies. There's a lot of meat.
Yeah,
It
you're good. Like that's
yeah,
actually the easy thing. Like you can definitely find that's most of what you can find is meats and
meat.
carbs. So I would say pretty easy. I wouldn't say it's the best cuisine in the world, I fear, but you can definitely find something to eat for sure.
Oh yeah. There's meat on meat on meat. If you're a meat
Yeah,
eater,
you're good. You're lit.
you're good.
Yeah.
Um, Byrek. I like Byrek. and they have different, tell you, idea, nobody steal it. If they made Birek with like Cajun style, like just different kind of
Ooh,
Bireks, right?
ooh.
Like pastry Bireks with different
Mhm,
fillings,
mhm.
or like Cajun Bireks where you have like seafood in them.
That's cute.
That would be
You should do
good. Like
that.
nobody steal my idea. I'm going back to
Yeah,
Albania. I'm going to make like a fusion.
yeah.
Nobody steal
I
that.
I mess with it heavily. Do that.
Yes, Esther says she loves walking, but it's good to know there are taxis to fall back on when I need them. Abigail says taxis are like $2 to $5 each, and you can also you can haggle them sometimes. Um, the taxi system in Albania, I think it's gotten better. There's an app now, Lux Taxi, and I think there
Yeah,
might be another one to request taxis.
yeah.
Before then, like last year, it's just kind of like if you find a taxi driver that you like, get their phone number, or the taxis will have numbers on the side, old school, and you have to like request through WhatsApp or call them. Most of the time, they don't speak English. Uh, to
True.
to come and pick you up. You know,
Yeah,
yeah.
that is true.
So so you mentioned going around to Dures and things like that. How do you get around the country? Not just within Tirana, but how do you get to the different parts of Albania?
So, yeah, there is a main bus terminal that will get you to most places in Tirana. The great thing about Tirana is that it is very centrally located within the country, which is pretty rare actually for a capital city. Like, think about Washington, D.C., it's way over there. So that's a really cool thing. The terminal is a bit outside the city, but there is a bus or you can take a taxi. The taxi to get out there is a little bit more expensive, but that's apparently an unpopular opinion. But you can take a bus from the center of the city to get out to the terminal. And this terminal has buses to Dores. It has buses that mostly go north and south. And there is another bus terminal which is close to Tag, so closer to where we live, that takes you to places in the east. Yeah, sorry, I had to think about directions. Right?
Yeah, so
Yes,
that would
east.
be like
Um,
Darat and the other mountain,
Elbasan,
mountains.
yeah,
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 yeah, yeah. So that's how to get to other places in the country. And then there is also at that bus station, the one that goes to the east, they also have buses going to other countries. And there is another international bus terminal a bit closer to the center that has more buses going to other countries. So
okay.
how it
And
works is when you show up to the terminal, in most cases, you just find the bus that has, it'll have a little thing that says the name of where you want to go. And usually you just get on the bus and then someone will come around after you've already started driving. Someone will come around and collect the money from you for your ticket. There are some routes where you need to buy a ticket. For example, the express bus from Tirana to Saranda, you need to buy a ticket, like an actual physical ticket. But most of the time, someone just comes around and collects the money from you.
yeah. And how did you find out this information? Because I have thoughts.
So, I mean, for me, it's a little different because when I came to Albania, I wasn't alone. My best friend lives there. So originally, when I came to Albania, I stayed in Dors most times, and so we went together for my first time ever to go to Tirana on the bus, and then going back, same thing as I just described. So that's how I found out that information.
Yeah, so like for someone who doesn't have connections that are Albanian, um, it's kind of difficult to find out information. Uh, a
Yeah,
lot of it is not available online. So
that's
if
true.
you're interested in going to Albanian, I would recommend joining. There's a ton of Facebook groups and kind of stockpiling information from
Hmm.
different sources to find out things. I mean, I want to say they've they've built up a lot of like resources
Mhm.
now,
Agreed.
but when I first went there, there wasn't a lot of
Yeah.
information available.
Yeah. One other note on that I'll say is that things are changing all the time. So, I mean, it still should be like how we said for a while that you go to the bus terminal and whatever. But things are changing so fast there with the increase in tourism. So that's also something to keep in mind. Like if you see a post in one of those groups that's like from 2 years ago and it's like, oh, this is how to do this, it's probably some of the information in it is going to be obsolete at that point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, Abigail asked, "Do you have to go early in the morning, or is it all day they are there?"
So I will, Abigail specifically, I'll send you the timetables, but most of the buses, I mean, it depends on the destination. For the one to Dors, it runs like up until like 8 p.m. And then on the way back, kind of the same thing. I would recommend, because
Mhm.
Tirana is kind of the only bus station that has that timetable, I would recommend asking someone there, especially if you're going for a day trip from Tirana to Dores. I would ask someone there when the last bus is going to be, and I would get there early for that bus because it's happened to me before that I'm like, oh, the last bus is at 7:30 or whatever, and then I get there at 7:25. And they're like, oh, the bus was full, so they just left at like 7:15 because the bus was already full. So I would say if you're counting on getting that last bus of the day, be early for it. But for most routes, yeah, they do have multiple buses throughout the day.
So, as an introvert who doesn't like to talk to people, I'm going to give my advice. Uh, Duras is a short ride. So I think if you want to ride the bus to Duras, that's fine. I think it's like an hour, like hour and a half, hour.
If there's no traffic, it should be even less. It should be like
Yeah.
30 minutes, 40 minutes. Yeah.
But if your plan is to see the other cities in Albania, I would rent a car. I would rent a car so I don't have to talk to people and so I don't have to wait for anything or anyone. Um, so yeah, that's the introvert advice. Limited interactions with human beings and figuring out bus schedules, pay, time, things like that. I bypassed it all, just rent a car. So
So one thing I say about that though, we can't say that and not warn them about the drivers, Albanian drivers. We cannot. You just, I don't know why.
okay, so something to note. It's okay. In Tirana, um, get it how you live, right? Because Albanians don't have fear and they are walking out into the street with no regard for the lights. They are also not the best drivers. It's important to understand that uh, Tirana was Albania was a communist country for until I think the 90s. So a lot of those people have not been driving that long.
Yeah.
So, needless to
Okay.
say, they are not the best drivers, right? But once you get out of Tirana, once you get out of Tirana and you're just on the highway, it's just you and the highway, depending on the time that you're traveling. Depending on where you're going, the roads are better. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't chance it and drive to Dudas because I've heard things about. And also, what's that city further up?
Shoulder.
Yeah, I wouldn't chance it driving all the way up there because I've heard the roads are not the best condition getting up there. So you want to be no, I don't know.
I think they're fine. I've driven up that way. I mean, there definitely are roads to avoid, and I mean that's what I'm kind of thinking when it comes to renting a car too. I would mention to the rental car person like, "Hey, I'm driving here. Do you think the roads are okay?" Because I had that experience
Yeah,
in June where I drove somewhere where the roads were fine up until a certain point, and then they weren't, and I got the car stuck, and the rental car guy had to come save me.
is that?
which
I did
was
that before.
super, yeah, super embarrassing. And he was like, "Why didn't you tell me you were going here?" I'm like, "Yeah, I guess I should have done that."
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it's just like, really anywhere on the highway though, there can just be that one crazy. I mean, that's everywhere, but I mean, Albanians drive super, especially the men, drive super duper fast. They want to show off, blah blah blah, and
In their BMWs, they want to show off.
in their Range Rovers, yes. Um, that and also, my first accident ever was in Albania. I had never even been not been a driver in an accident nor been a passenger in an accident. My first accident ever was in Albania in the highway between Elbasan and Tirana. And it was just such a stupid thing. And I mean, I don't want to be mean, but I do agree with what you said. Like, most people have not been driving that long. Like, this was a woman, a middle aged woman. And I just felt like it was the dumbest mistake ever and completely avoidable. And yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Risk it if you want to risk it, and don't
Yeah.
if you don't.
Yeah. Agreed.
Um, okay, so let's say somebody is planning their trip to Albania. How do you find accommodations? What are your recommendations?
Hmm. So, I mean, yeah. So, like for short term or long term?
Both.
Either one. Okay. So for short term, I mean, I'm not a fan of the company Airbnb, but of course, that's going to be one of your best options along with booking.com. Unless you want to find specifically a hotel, you can also, of course, just search hotels in the city you want to go to and book it the old fashioned way. A lot of people use hostels, which I've stopped using the hostels a while ago, but hostel culture is becoming more popular in Albania as a lot of younger people are backpacking through Albania. So I think people use Hostel World, etc. If you're staying long term, I would, the way I found my apartment that first time around when we met was I went on Facebook Marketplace and I was just searching like apartment for rent, sublet, something like that. And I was able to find my apartment and they allowed me to rent for 6 months, which was great. But most rentals do prefer you to stay a year minimum. Um, but yeah, then it was just kind of like any other place. I paid first and last. I paid the agency fee. They did give me a discount since I was only staying 6 months rather than a year. Um, this time around, I did a year long lease, and I think I paid first, last, and a deposit, and also the agency fee. So it's a bit more. Um, yeah.
Did you need any help with the rental agreement?
So both times they gave me the rental agreement in English. I think both times they gave me it both in Albanian and in English.
Okay, that's helpful. Abigail is asking if you feel comfortable, can you share pricings for accommodation? So, like, I guess kind of if you could give a range, like a ballpark for somebody to look for. What's too much?
Mm. Well, it definitely depends on the number of bedrooms and the location. And then even for me, there's some things I'm like, oh, that's reasonable. And then if I tell that to a local Albanian, they're like, no, that's way too much.
They
So I would
always say
say,
that. So you're
yes.
gonna get, you know how people talk about the black tax? You're gonna get the black tax because they know you're American specifically, and they expect that you have money because you're American. So you're unless you have like an Albanian negotiating for you, it's gonna be hard to get the Albanian price.
So I don't even know if it's that though. I think like honestly, I think for my apartment, like there was a price listed online and I, contacted the agent or whatever and the landlord actually really didn't prefer a foreigner. She actually really would have preferred a local to stay there, but there was no difference in price. And there's actually been times where I've offered to pay more if they let me do only a 6 month lease. Um, but it just depends. Like if you reach out to a local, like I would say find the listing online rather than messaging an agent, if that makes sense. Because if you message the agent first, then they do have that control to like, you know, give you too high of a price. But if you see the listing first and you see what the price is, then maybe a local could negotiate it lower. I don't know, but at least you know what they expect and what is fair. But
When you say find the
in
listing, you're still talking about Facebook.
Facebook, you can do okay. They have a website. It's maybe we can put it in the description afterwards. But this is like the local website that local people use. So you can find agencies and you can also find like just I own an apartment and I'm renting it out to someone, no agency involved. You can also find that on the website. Or you can go to like Century 21, is that what it's called? Century 21's website, Remax, and then there's other local agencies as well, and you can see what the price is listed there. But in Tirana for accommodation, you can pay on the lower end of things, maybe 300 if you're not worried about being centrally located and you're okay with somewhere like the apartment a bit smaller or maybe not as modern. On the higher end of things, of a one bedroom closer to the center, it can be like 600, maybe more if it's really centrally located and really modern. Um, and then, of course, if you want more bedrooms, then it'll be more. But um, yeah, maybe highest end of things for a one bedroom, I would say like 700 euros.
And that definitely is way more than what you'd pay on way under what you pay if you just used Airbnb the whole time you were there. Because I think
True.
listings in Airbnb are like 1,000, two
Yeah.
thousand, yeah, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, I know Airbnb has really changed. Like they just add so much on with their fees and taxes and stuff. And of course people want to make their money, but yeah, it used to not be that expensive, but now it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about your experience? Not alongside. I'm sorry, I'm reading some of the comments.
Okay, you're good.
Can you talk about your experience in Tirana? Like, what are some of the things that you enjoy doing?
Yeah, well, one of the things you'll first notice when you go to Albania is the coffee culture. There's coffee everywhere. It is actually the country with the most like coffee shops per capita. So I mean that's the main thing to do. Like let's go get a coffee. And coffee also it's funny because for Albanians they say like, oh, let's go get a coffee. But coffee can mean anything. Coffee can mean coffee. Coffee can mean drinks like alcoholic drinks. It can even end up being dinner. You know, coffee can be anything. But that love of coffee, as a tool of community building is really instilled in the country. So that's one of the main things to do. There is also nightlife in Tirana. I would say for me, my favorite thing to do was back when I was taking Albanian classes was just to go get a beer with my friends afterwards. They have a lot of great bars. They have a lot of interesting restaurants. Block is obviously one of the best areas to, find a cute place to get a little drink in Tirana. Other things to do, they do have museums. We mentioned Mount Daibi. You can take the cable car up there. If you want to do that, you can also visit Bunk Art, which is a museum that's out there. So you can hit two birds with one stone. Um, Other than that, I mean, it's pretty much like any other city, you know. You've got your places to eat, you've got your communities. Um, I really feel like for me, taking the language class was one of the best things I could have done to, create a community in my city. So if you want to do that, I can recommend the Lincoln Center is a great place to go to learn Albanian and make some friends. The Lincoln Center too is located in Block, so that's the perfect place to hang out with friends and then go get some drinks afterwards.
Do you recommend learning Albanian for somebody who wants to stay there long term?
I definitely do. And you don't need to you don't need to stress yourself out and try to get fluent, but I do think just putting in that little bit of effort goes a long way with Albanians. They're so
They're
excited when you
so
can just speak.
impressed. Oh my
Yeah, dude.
God. When you say person did it, they're like, you speak Albanian?
Give some shit. Yeah. Yeah, no,
They're
they love
just
it.
so
So
happy.
yeah, they really are. And I mean, that's great. You get some free drinks off of that for sure. Like you're gonna get something for free if you speak a little Albanian to an Albanian. You're getting something for free for sure.
Yeah, get something
So I
free
definitely
anyway.
you are gonna get something free anyway, just just for basically being a celebrity, as you said. You're definitely getting something for free. So I highly recommend it. And I just think I mean, I recommend that for anyone that lives long term in a country where they don't speak the main language. You can definitely get by with English in most places in Albania, but I think it's really rewarding to learn the language.
Yeah, and I think to speak a little bit to Esther's question about getting a digital nomad
Mm,
visa or working holiday visa. So Esther, I believe you're in the UK. So I'm not sure what the situation is from the UK, but I know for Americans, we have a visa on arrival with Albania. So you can stay in Albania for a year on that visa,
So
without having
it's
to
not
apply
even
for
a
anything.
visa. Yeah,
It's
it's
not
not
even a
even a visa.
visa.
Yeah, you don't need a visa at all. You just show up, you can stay there for a year.
Yeah.
And then if you stay for a year, you can leave for 3 months and then come back again for another year. Most likely, you wouldn't even stay in Albania that entire year. You would probably go visit other countries in the area as well. Um, for the digital nomad visa, I know they do have one. I haven't needed to get it, so unfortunately, I don't know all of the details, but I think it would be fairly easy to get as long as you earn the required amount of money. I don't envision it being too difficult to get.
Yeah. And I have a friend who has residency in Albania. She used a local attorney, but she said the process was really, really easy and you only have to make
Yeah.
I wish I knew the numbers. Maybe I'll ask and get that information to you guys, but like the process for getting a visa or getting residency in Albania is really easy. I also didn't feel the need to look into it just because, when I heard I could stay there for a year, I was like, oh, well, Albania is going to be my base and I'm going to bop around Europe. So,
No,
period.
100%.
Um,
Agreed.
Natalie says, I think you have to pay double taxes.
So yes, this is a
Yeah.
great point. So that's what I'm sort of running into now. I'm in the US at the moment. And so as long as you stay within a calendar year, if you stay under 6 months, like under 183 days, I believe it is. No, not 183, girl. Yes, 183. Sorry, math. If you stay under 183 days, you don't have to pay taxes. And if you make under a certain amount of money, you don't have to pay double taxes. These are, I'm sure about these things, but I do want to see for the next coming year, if I were to stay beyond that amount of time, what can I do? So if you run into that situation, let's say you move to Albania right now, you're only going to be there for 2 months, so you're good for this year. You don't have to worry about paying double taxes. But going into next year, you can reach out to an accountant and you know try to figure that out.
And I don't. Okay, so first disclaimer: the Awkward Black Nomad brand is not recommending any of this. Right? I am not in a position. I'm not licensed to give any sort of move abroad advice. I'm not. I don't have any certificates for doing that. These are not my recommendations. However, I look at Albania as so I love the country. I enjoy being there. So when I talk about staying in Albania for a year, I don't know that I would do the entire year in Albania.
Right.
It's a great place to keep my stuff while I bop around the rest of Europe, hopping in and out of the Schengen zone because Albania is outside the Schengen. So
Yeah.
do with that information what you will. That's how
Yeah.
I've been doing it. So I didn't have to worry about paying double taxes.
Yep.
Um, yeah, for the nomad. Sorry. Yes, for the nomad. No legal advice. Thank you. Everybody liked the video. Take this moment to like the video. Maya is down here.
Hmm.
Yes. And we appreciate family. We appreciate this amazing information from Maya. We have another question. Can you describe the vibe of living in
Mm.
Tirana versus Duras?
Happy to do so. I mean, so they're, you know what? That's very interesting. They're kind of flip flops. So it's like during the summertime, Doors is popping. There's so many people. It's so busy. If that's your vibe, then Doors is great to be in the summertime. Again, I mentioned that to you offline, but Doors doesn't have the best beaches. But if that's your vibe, like Doors is great in the summertime. The rest of the year, Doors is very, very quiet. It's very much, it's definitely not the quietest city in Albania by far, but it can be very quiet if you're used to being from a big city in the United States. Tirana, on the other hand, is pretty quiet during the summer, and then the rest of the year, I believe Tirana has the most universities in the country, so the students all come back to school. During the rest of the year, Tirana is much more of a popping vibe. Um, but in some ways, they have similarities. I would say in both places, as a Black traveler, you would be somewhat of a novelty, but not as much as like a village, that's way
Oh,
out there in Albania. So there are some travelers, even in wintertime in Dors, I've ran into Black people. It's rare, but I've ran into Black people in Dors in the middle of winter. So both places people are going to see you as a novelty, but not like, you know, to the degree that it would be like in a village. What else can I say? Um, Indoors, yeah, like as I said, during the off season, it is more like families and older people. There are some young people that live there, but it's more like families and older people versus like Tirana is more young people. It's
yeah.
like it's the youth city of the country.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot of people actually come from Durrës or come from other cities in the north and move down to Tirana for
Yeah,
work. So it's kind of like that young, like late 20s and up, like the
yeah,
working age. They go to Tirana because there's a lot of businesses, there's a lot of like
right.
economic growth. I think that investors are pouring a lot of money into Tirana because they know like a lot of foreigners go there and it's kind of like a bigger city.
Yeah.
So, um, so we talked a little bit about this, but can you speak to how you are able to build community in Albania? Like, what has that been like? Obviously, you had an
Mm,
in because you had a friend, but you've
yeah,
since made a lot of Albanian friends. So,
true.
what are some of the ways you kind of like threw yourself into the culture and got your people?
So I'm not gonna lie. Part of it is posting online. I have a lot of Albanian followers. I would say like at least on Instagram, most of my followers are Albanian, and they reach out to me. I have a lovely Albanian friend who actually grew up most of her life in Italy, and she just moved to Tirana kind of for the first time in her life recently. And so, although she's Albanian, she was reaching out to me for advice about Tirana. And so, it's been really great to get to know her. Um, Additionally, I go on tours, so like day trips. Um, and when I do that, I go with an Albanian company that caters to locals. So there are companies that cater to foreigners. They're speaking English or they're speaking French, whatever language you want. But I go with the one where they're basically speaking Albanian the whole time, and then if I need them to translate something into English for me, they will. And that has been probably, yeah, the main other way that I've made friends is through those trips, day trips.
And how did you find those Albanian tour companies?
Yeah, I don't even remember. Like Instagram, yeah. And so I can go, you can go to my Instagram page after this. I will tag the one that I've gone with the most. And yeah, from there I've made some really cool friends.
It
But
sounds
there's
like our friend needs to build out her own resource guide for Albania and pull all of these things together for the people interested in
I think I
traveling
do.
there. I think you
I
do.
think I do. You're so right. I
Mhm.
will.
Can you speak to so we did talk a little bit about how Albanians kind of have a bad reputation. Could you speak to some of the things that you've noticed about Albanian people kind of as a whole to and how they receive you, but also why people may feel like, why they may go to Albania and not have a great experience? That's a very vague. Do you understand the question?
Sorry, can you repeat the last part a little bit? Sorry.
Right, right. But can you speak to like the Albanian people? So like, what's your impression of them? How have they received you, and what's your impression?
So overwhelmingly positively, they are very welcoming as a people, especially to foreigners. I would say overall they are nicer to foreigners than they are to each other. I had an instance where I was indoors and I was driving my friend's mom back to Tirana, and we stopped to get gas. And like this was before I spoke Albanian, so I don't know exactly how the conversation went. But as soon as we pulled up to the pump, her and the guy pumping the gas started getting into it, like they were going in on each other. And then the guy like saw me in the driver's seat and he was like, "Oh, hi." And then he was just nice from then on out. And it's funny, every time I talk to Albanians, they're like, "Oh," especially there's a lot of regional disagreements. A lot of people from Tirana don't like people from Shkodër, for example. I don't know if that's true. Everyone doesn't like people from Albanian people from Macedonia. People from Kosovo don't like people from Tirana. So Albanians generally are nicer to foreigners than they are to each other, to be honest. One thing that frustrates me a little bit about Albanians is it's not unique to them. It's a very common thing, but the talking and gossiping about people is excessive. The making up stories is excessive. And I've definitely had that happen to me, which is why I'm not going to say too much on here. But yeah, there's a lot of, yeah, of course, people see us and they're like, oh, that's so exciting. Like, you're here. But they're still probably going to talk smack about you behind your back, I fear. Um, Something to keep in mind.
Problems that you may run into anyway, like when you're
Yeah,
entering in any friend group, right? So in that sense,
totally.
it's kind of like, oh, okay, like so they have the same stuff over here too. Like making friends or engaging with people is
But it's
drama.
not
There's
even
drama.
friends, though, actually. I would say it's more like aunties. It's the aunties, like the random.
No,
Yeah, I
no,
know.
no.
Yes,
Because
no,
no,
you're
no, no,
talking
I
about
know
the
what you're
nomads. You're
talking
talking
about.
about the nomads, but they're talking smack
I know
about
what you're
you.
talking about. I know what you're talking about. Okay, so I feel like I don't know if I want to say this on camera. I
Exactly. We got
feel
to be
like
careful
because
here.
I'm gonna tell this story. There was a
Like,
time when my car broke down when I was
mm,
in, I think I was in Saranda, and men are so helpful to you. Like
yep,
men, probably like in the 30, 40 range, they help you out,
yep,
they help you. But if you go up to a woman who is, I would say, over the age of like 35 and under the age of
mm,
maybe 50, they will
mm.
not help you. They're like beefed out for some
Really,
reason. Like
really,
I went into the store and I kept asking her, um, like, where is the my car? I think I was saying something like, my car is broken, my car is broken. And I looked it up on Google Translator and I was like trying to show her or get, sometimes it can talk, but like mine was kind of acting funny.
mm,
She would not help me. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. There was a guy who was like, "What? Like, can I help you? What is it?" And he,
mm,
again, this is not in English. This is all in Albanian. He was like, "Oh, come with me." Walked outside the
mm.
store and pointed me towards the car repair guy. Cause
Oh,
like
sorry.
exactly. So I feel like there's just a little bit of like beef that I don't know where it came from. I don't know why
So
they. I don't know. It's like that
the
middle-aged
thing
woman
is,
and up.
yeah, sure. I haven't had that much of that experience, but I really what I'm saying is like those women will be so nice to you, but again, they're talking smack about you behind your back. And everyone. It's not only us. In fact, they're
It's
doing
also
it way less
everyone.
to us than they are. They're doing it to each other way more than they're doing it to us. But I guess that's part of what I don't love either is not just that people are talking smack, but also that people care. Like Albanians tend to care a lot when people are talking smack about them. They tend to care a lot, like, oh, what are people going to say about me if I do this, if I wear this, you know? And I think that's so we as Black Americans, we feel like if people are talking smack about us, it's like you're that bitch, like you're that girl, like like they're jealous,
Give
that's
them
how you
something
feel.
to talk about.
Okay, but Albanians don't see it that way at all, man. So if people are talking smack about them, they like really tend to care. I don't know. It's interesting.
So you know what I want to talk about?
Yeah.
I want to talk about
I
dating. And I'm going to bring
yeah.
this up because I went on a date with a guy who it was like he was looking for spies. Like he was all
Yep.
around looking
Yep.
this
Exactly.
way, that way. Cause it's like
Yep.
I think sometimes they're worried about the image, right?
Yep.
Or maybe he thought we was gonna run into his mama or something. I don't know. But
Facts.
or his side chick or his wife. I don't know.
All of
So
the above, maybe. Like,
what has been your experience dating in Albania?
so my experience is pretty limited. What I'll say is that there's definitely that, and there's definitely the fear of like who's gonna see you. And I guess just for me, since I have so many people that are close to me in Albania, I kind of mostly avoid that entirely because I don't want someone like I'm being like them now. I'm kind of being like, oh, I don't want someone to see me and think, oh, I'm just out here with a bunch of guys because they'll do that. Like I had an experience not when I was even out. Like I was just like I went on a day trip and a guy posted a video of us speaking to each other and then the story went to multiple different countries that I was out there messing around with some dude in the
In the
mountains. And it's like,
streets, a
no. Yeah,
Jezebel.
right. So I'm like, that's not even true. So I kind of mostly avoid it as much as possible. But one thing, okay, two things I'll say is that we get a lot of attention there from men. If you get what I'm talking about, they really are fascinated by Black women. Um, but I would say the attention isn't always so pure. It feels most of the time that it's a bit fetishy, more than a bit, actually. And also, I would say most of the attention I get from men is from married men. So what does that say? Yeah. So I can't say that. I mean, if you want to come to Albania and you want to go on a date, go for it. Just beware.
I
just
almost
just
feel like I almost feel like I wouldn't recommend women in our age range to date within Albania because there are definitely good men out there, but I would say you have to go through this weeding process, this vetting process,
Yeah.
and I don't know that anybody has time for that. Like, come with your
Yeah.
husband. Don't don't go stick your or
Agreed.
what you could do, like, if you live in Spain and you run into an Albanian man and you guys fall in love, like that's a different experience because number one, he is perceived to be well traveled, right? So if you are meeting up with an Albanian guy while you're in Albania and he hasn't traveled a lot, or I just think there's just certain things to be on the lookout for if you're
Yeah.
of a certain age and you're looking to date in Albania.
Yeah.
Um,
But
yeah,
on that note, though, I think so. There's this thing called the rule, which is that all Albanian men are supposed to marry Albanian women and vice versa. So there's a stereotype, like I haven't really, I don't know this firsthand, but I've seen this a lot. Girls saying online, especially Black women, being like, oh, yeah, what? I live in the UK and all Albanian men here want to mess around with Black women, but they don't want to settle down with Black women. They're going to end up with an Albanian woman at the end of the day because that's the rule. So also be careful in either situation.
yeah. I mean, there's the cultural aspect of it, like the cultural and religious aspect of it that I don't know that that is different in any other place. So, like, if you go to Asia, you're probably going to find people who partner with people who look like them, people who have of the same
Yeah,
background, of the same religion. If you go to Turkey, you may find Arabic men who are only dating other Arabic women. So it's like it, it's kind of the same thing. I think just don't fall into that trap of being
yeah.
fetishized.
No, I'm gonna say it's the same but different. It's the same in the sense that they mostly end up within their own community, but what's different is how hard they go to try to get with women outside their community. Maybe it's not that different. Maybe I don't know.
I don't
Maybe
know.
they're also doing it in I don't know. But they it's just it can be a little bit jarring to see how much attention you get from men there and then just to realize that none of it's really serious, you know. It's
That's
different.
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
And you get
Actually,
called chocolate a lot.
yeah, you get
Woo.
called chocolate
Yeah.
a lot. You get called, beautiful Zamir, and you know, I um I like to think about it like this. Albania in a way is kind of in a lot of ways is still kind of stuck in the past, right? Like societally, because again, they haven't had a lot of exposure to the outside world. So even the thing about gossiping within the same community. So like if you go on a date with an Albanian, people within his community are going to be looking. Like there is a chance
Yeah.
that a family member, Tirana is very small, right?
Right.
And there's a chance that he's going to know someone that knows someone that is going to tell his mama, or
Right.
his mom, or you're going to be walking down the street and run into a relative because it's a small city. Um, and I think that also goes back to what you were saying about your image, your perceived image, and what you're doing while you're in Tirana. So, like, if you're going to be there for a long term stay, it's the same way in the South, right? Don't be going all out with the men folk, being seen all out in the street after
Mm.
church. It's the same thing. Like you're being shamed
Yeah.
by your grandma and your aunties in that same
Yeah.
way. Like the culture is similar. And again, it's like a small town, right? Like it's a small
Right.
town, so word travels fast.
Yeah.
So don't be
Got it.
fast.
I know that's right. A word.
Word travels fast, so don't be fast.
hmm There you go. That's it.
Um, okay, so you didn't do a lot of dating in experience. You didn't do a lot of dating in Albania. What has been? No, I don't want to ask that. Is it harder to date while you're traveling?
Definitely.
Mhm.
Um, Definitely. It is a lot harder to date while you're traveling. I think, I mean, yeah, I guess I've heard that from a lot of other travelers as well. Like, you go somewhere for a week, you're only meeting people that, you know, people have that perception of you, like you are transient, you're not staying long, so they want to use you as an S worker, basically. Like that's what it comes down to. They just want to, try to get you to do that. Um, but I do think if you stay somewhere longer and you put down roots, you build community, and maybe you find someone from within your community, maybe a friend of a friend. I think that's probably the best way to go. I don't use the apps, so I can't necessarily speak to that experience, but I do think that there's really positive things about dating someone from a different culture. Not necessarily saying, going super far with them, maybe it gets to that point or maybe it doesn't. But I do think that getting to know someone from a different culture in that way can make you realize more what you want in a partner, how you want to live your life. It can just open you up to, you know, a different point of view. It's just like any other aspect of traveling. It opens you up to different ways of life and different points of view. So I do think there's something to be gained from dating people from other cultures, but it is hard, especially if you're moving around from place to place to place.
Yeah. Has there been anything that has surprised you, either about Albania or just as you've been traveling?
Hmm. Um, yeah, I mean, this is one of those things that maybe you have this experience as well. It's not just about Albania, but it's just kind of generally speaking, just we in America have a really interesting way of looking at the world. And then when you go other places, you see that our way that we think is like the truth is not the way. And one thing that makes me think of that is like in America, African Americans are like this with each other, and we see, other Black people as being part of our team. But especially when you travel within Europe and you meet other Black people, they don't necessarily feel that way. So that's sort of the other thing that comes to, building a Black community is like, it's not as easy as you think. Like it
All
can
the
be. It
skin
definitely can
folk
happen.
ain't your
Yeah,
kinfolk.
I fear that's true. I know there's been so many times where I've been like, "Hi" to a Black person. They're just like, "Who are you?"
That's because we have our own, I think Black Americans have our own way of greeting each other. And so
Yeah,
sometimes that's not received well. So, like, and it really depends on whatever country you're in
yeah,
because I don't know. I feel like when I was in Germany, I would get so excited and like, and they were
yeah,
just like, no,
yeah. We're not doing
walk
that. We're
around.
not doing that.
Like,
Yeah,
oh yeah, the UK blacks are hit or miss. It's really hit or miss.
yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I know there was a time when in Tirana, I was with my friends and I saw like two lovely Black girls walking, and I like, smiled at them, and they just looked back. And it's not like they were mad, actually. They were just like, why did you smile at us? Like, that was weird. Like, I was like, oh, is it weird? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it really depends. Like,
Yeah.
it just depends. It depends.
Yeah. No, it
Um,
does depend, but I'm always there. I'm always seeing, like, if I see Black people especially on the buses, I'm always finding them and being like, hey, do you know where you're going? Do you know how to get there? So even if they don't feel the same way towards me, it is what it is.
That's why I said you're like the. I always, if I know someone is going to Albania, I'm always like, hit up Maya because
Yeah,
she's the Black Welcoming Committee.
true. True. That is very true.
No, but you were so warm and helpful to me when I
Oh,
got to Tirana, and even just like
oh,
chatting with you and having a coffee and sitting around and
yeah.
people watching. I just miss that.
I know I do
Um,
too. We had some
yeah,
fun. We had some good times, man. Come back. What are you doing?
I'll come back. I'll come back.
Okay,
That's
good.
I really feel like Albania is gonna be one of those places when I grow old, when I'm like
Mm,
retired, I could easily see myself settling down in Albania, probably Barat,
yeah.
because
Oh,
that's
really?
I love Barat.
Fascinating.
I
Yeah,
love,
it's
but I
beautiful.
had a really great experience in Barat. And so I
Yeah.
think like
Yeah.
yeah, when you really open yourself up to receive Albanian people, like
Mhm.
they're warm and very welcoming, but it just
Yes.
depends on like how you interact with them.
Facts. Agree.
Yeah. We got a question about, can you talk about how women
Mm.
dress? I noticed no one wears shorts or skirts above the knee.
So I would say probably right now that's because it's a bit colder, and also there. Well, it depends. I mean, you're in Tirana, so it doesn't get that cold there. So like probably how it is right now is, you know, kind of cold for them. But in the summertime, people do. People do wear shorts and skirts above the knee. I do know that in some like smaller villages and stuff, it's less common, but things are changing rapidly in Albania. As you said, they were isolated up until the 90s, and they've just had, an influx of like pop culture and different points of view since then. So even 10 years ago, it was very different how it is now. And you shouldn't have any issues wearing shirts or
Yeah.
skirts or shorts above the knee in most places in Albania. I have heard in the Albanian parts of Macedonia that they are much more religious there. They are much more Muslim there and much more conservative in the way that they dress. But around Albania, you shouldn't have issues.
I feel like Albanian people, and tell me if you agree or disagree with this. Albanian people are like religious on paper,
Mhm.
but lifestyle like, society like, in our age range, not the older people, but like in the late 20s and 30s,
Mhm.
they're like, yeah, I'll go to the mosque.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, but it's not like
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so religion was actually outlawed in Albania during the communist regime, and so religion never really like fully rebound after that point in time. That's why, like in Kosovo and in the Albanian parts of Macedonia, they are a lot more religious than in Albania. Like, yeah, they're, I mean, it's similar to how Americans are primarily Christian. It's like there are people that are really religious, but for the most part, people celebrate Christmas, celebrate
yeah,
Easter, and call it a day, basically.
Christmas was big. Like, I went to the Christmas markets in Square, and I heard that it was the biggest it had ever been. I think part of that was like tourism, and they had a lot of people coming in for their Christmas market.
Mhm.
And I think there was a big one in Sculpture, but I'm not sure. I think
Oh,
so.
I've not,
Like maybe it was
I've not,
small,
probably. No, I'm
but
sure there was, but I didn't go
yeah,
there.
but like I don't. They really don't. I don't. My impression is that they really don't care. Not the way they drink. I don't think they care.
Facts. Facts. Yeah,
Um,
some people definitely go to the mosque on a Friday, but um, yeah, no, they generally it's not that religious. Yeah, I agree.
yeah. Well, I feel like we covered a lot of topics. Is there anything that you feel like we missed and you want to share about Albania? Do you have any advice for people looking to travel to Albania?
Yeah, I do have a few things. So one of the things that I will mention is like getting the things that you need can be difficult. So you might want to definitely hit up the expat groups on Facebook and stuff for information about that because shopping there is not good. The import taxes are extremely high, so the and there's not much that's produced in the country. So most of the things you're gonna buy are gonna be overpriced and like not the best quality. So that includes makeup,
Hair
clothes,
care,
yeah, hair
and
care,
then getting stuff delivered is
exactly,
ridiculous.
yeah,
Like, there's no, so like in Albania, I feel like there's no addresses. There aren't really
yes,
addresses.
yes,
So if
that's true.
you have a package, what they do is they'll usually have like a local point that you can get your stuff delivered
Mhm.
to, but you got to go down there and get it. And then you
Right,
probably have to wait. You probably have to wait a very
right.
long time. Like, I have my friend who lives there was trying to get some hair care stuff that she got from the
Yeah.
UK. And
Mm.
when I told you she was waiting for like 2 months for a box and
Yeah.
then like had to go down to
That's
the local shipping office or whatever
yeah.
to get it. So it's
Yeah.
really complicated. There's no Amazon,
Yeah.
not in the conventional sense.
Yeah. So the same thing for hair products for me, I had my ex who lives in Belgium who has Albanian friends. There's basically a bus parcel delivery system where it's a passenger bus, so it's taking people, all around Europe basically, but they will use that as a courier service to deliver packages. So that was definitely a cheap and fast way for me to get my package. But if you don't have that connection, it can be a little bit more difficult. And then there's the import taxes thing too. So I know what a lot of people do, especially on bigger purchases like furniture, bigger things that you want, things that have a higher cost. A lot of people get them delivered to Yanina in Greece and then drive all the way down there and all the way back up. So that's an option if you have, you know, some bigger things that you need to get delivered. But all that to say that that's just something to consider, if you want to make the move. It's not like Germany where you're going to be able to find your black hair care supplies and you're going to be able to find, your makeup and things, at, a relatively normal price and a good quality. So just something to consider if you want to move to Albania.
Yeah, definitely. Especially about the makeup. They're not gonna have your shade. They not
Well,
gonna
yeah,
have it.
at all,
Just saying.
obviously.
But I didn't really wear, I
Um,
don't know. Or they also may not have your size if you're trying to buy
facts,
clothes.
facts. That I run into that issue in the chest department, if you know what I'm saying. I cannot buy, undergarments there. I have to buy them from elsewhere because you can't really find my size. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
things to consider.
Well, that's all I got, folks. Maya, I really appreciate you coming down to the
Thank
channel. Maybe
you.
chat again. Maybe this could be like
Yeah,
I feel like this could be a thing. There was a lot of
yeah,
interest in people wanting to know about Albania.
yeah.
Yeah, so I really appreciate your
I think
time.
so.
Thank you
Yeah,
for
I
coming.
appreciate you having me so much, and I'm so glad we got to catch up. I miss
Yeah,
you. I want you to come back, but
I miss you too. I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna come back.
okay,
I don't know when.
period. Okay, period.
Yes. So as always, please like the video. Drop in the comments and tell me, ask some questions for Maya. I'll get them to her, or maybe we'll just have her come back on the channel.
Yeah.
Subscribe to the channel, share this
Mm-hmm.
video,
Mm-hmm.
and stay black. I don't know. Peace out. This was
Agreed.
Keyoka, the Awkward Black Nomad. Talk to y'all later.